Hello and welcome to my Diablo 4 patch 1.1.1 Chain Lightning Arc Lash Sorcerer build guide. Hope you enjoy. Now let's talk about the gear and aspects of this build. There are two aspects in this build that are being slept on by the community and I think really help this build quite a bit. The first is the Mage Lord's aspect and the helm. It's tied to the various mastery keys passive, and it adds 9% damage reduction for each close enemy up to 27%. So if you have 3 enemies close to you, you're getting 27% damage reduction on top of the damage reduction from the Veer's Mastery passive. So that's a lot. The next aspect is the aspect of Audacity, and it stuns 5+ enemies and stuns them for 4 seconds, and it can only occur only 20 seconds, but it acts like a mini raiment. And you can also use raiment here for farming if you need to. But the stats that you want are damage reduction from close, damage reduction from burning, max life, and general damage reduction. On the gloves, you want the accelerating aspect, critical strikes from core skills, increase your attack speed by 25%. And what you want, which is very nice because it also, I think, increases your arc lash. It might, I don't know. The stats that you want are critical strike, 4 ranks of chain lightning, critical strike damage, or lightning critical strike damage, or intelligence. On the pants, you either want temerity, which you got a new buff if you get a good roll of it, but though you might be a little squishier. It might be good for farming, I don't know. I've not tested this. But you want either, and this depends on what you put on your boots. If you use penitent greaves, you can use ever living here as well. But what I'm using is the aspect of might, and it adds basic skills grant 20% damage reduction. What I want on the pants is the same as the chest, damage reduction from close, damage reduction from burning, max life, and damage reduction in general. For the boots, you want either Essu's Heirloom or Penitent Greaves. It does not matter which, though if you're using Penitent Greaves, you can put Ever Living up here, and also use the Frostover chants instead. For the weapon, you want the Conceited aspect. You deal 25% increased damage while you have a barrier active. And what you want on the is intelligence, core skill, vulnerable damage, and lightning critical strike damage. On the neck, I'm using, this is where I put it, Disobedience. It can go anywhere on these, but yeah. For it reduces your damage by up to 45% on this aspect, on the amulet, so that helps a lot. What you want for stats are Devouring Blaze, movement speed. I'd rather this be cooldown reduction, but this works too. And 3 ranks of defensive skills. For the rings, I'm using Band of Control, and you deal 33% more damage to immobilized, stunned, or frozen enemies. And I want critical damage, vulnerable damage, critical strike chance, and lightning damage. Lightning damage is very key. You want that. Same thing for stats on the ring. You can also put max life or max mana, depending on how you heal. for there, but I'm also using the recharging aspect. Each time Chain Lightning bounces, it bounces and you gain 2.5%, 2.5 mana, which pretty much refills your mana bar. Almost, if you get this next aspect that would go off. And it's the aspect of Unbroken Tether. Chain Lightning has a 40% chance to chain to 4 additional targets, which is 9 bounces, and each of them is also regenerating mana, which almost refills your mana cost. If you have mana cost, you can reduce it to where you're actually building mana by using Chain Lightning. But what I'm using for stats are intelligence, critical chance, basic attack damage, and cooldown reduction. And for gems, I'm putting rubies here. You can put topazes if you need to, if you have enough life. And the weapons, I'm putting emeralds for critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies. For the hearts, I am using the Barber Heart. I have a 4.0 heart. You can use shorter if you need to. I'm using Tempting Fate. You can also use Picana in this build, and it probably works just fine. If you're using the Penitent Greaves and the Frost Orb version of this build, you can put in Talrasha, which, though Talrasha is added to damage and it doesn't really do much. For the third heart, we're using a Revenge Heart for damage reduction. You can also use Picana and an orange slot here too. And what Revenge does, it suppresses the incoming damage for 20%, and then explodes it back out whenever you use the defensive spell. So whenever you use Frost Nova, Ice Armor, Unstable Elements, or Teleport, it'll explode, and you can do damage to enemies, which also sets off the Barber and also sets off Tempting Fate too. So it's also yeah. That's the gear for this build, and up next will be the skill tree. Now let's talk about the skill tree for this build. For the basic skills, I have 1 point in Firebolt for the enchantment slot. And then I have 5 points in Arc Lash, going to Enhanced Arc Lash and Glinting Arc Lash. Glinting Arc Lash reduces your cooldown, which is very key for this build. You need to reduce the cooldowns quite a bit. The core skills, you can use Frost Orb. There is a Frost Orb version of this build with Chain Lightning, with Frost Orb as the enchant instead. But you're using Chain Lightning. I have 9 of 5 ranks because of the gloves. Enhanced Chain Lightning gains critical strike chance per bounce, and then I'm using Destructive Chain Lightning to produce the crackling energy, which has use for later. For defensive skills, I'm not using Flame Shield. I don't think it works well with this build. I think Ice Armor is immensely better for this build. But I'm using Teleport, Enhanced Teleport, and Shimmering Teleport for the damage reduction. Glass Cannon 3 of 3. Oh, and that over here I'm using 1 point in the Devastation, and then Elemental Dominance for the increased damage above 50 mana, which you basically almost all the time. Using Glass Cannon for extra damage. You more or less outdo the damage penalty, but yeah. Ice Armor, which saves you quite a bit with this build. And I'm just using the 1 point for the mana generation. Frost Nova is a good way to get really damp up or get damage up for close when the enemies are close to you, because it applies vulnerable. I'm using the mystical Frost Nova, and it gives enemies vulnerable. And then for conjuration skills, I'm putting 1 point into Lightning Spear, 1 point into Enhanced, and then using invoked Lightning Spear to stun enemies for 2 seconds when it critical strikes. This increases the critical strike chance of it. Over here, I am using Align the Out elements, damage reduction against elites, mana shield, which should always be up or close to always be up for damage reduction, and protection adds barrier whenever you use a cooldown, which is nice. For mastery, we're not taking any of the skills, but we're taking a lot of the passives. Icy Veil for increased barrier duration. We're just taking the 1 point in Inner Flame just to get the Devouring Blaze, which is a big jump in damage, even with the nerf in 1.0 or 1.1. That's what it is. It is still a big damage buff, but considering putting 1 point of static discharge, but we're not really getting a lot out of this with this build. We're getting more of it out of the Chain Lightning. You might get some out of the Lightning Spear, but that's it. But we're getting Invigorating Conduit, which adds mana whenever we pick up Crackling Energy, and it helps even out the low mana that we have to be getting the Crackling Energy and getting it, adding to our mana. For the ultimates, we're using Unstable Currents, Prime Unstable Currents for the attack speed, and Supreme for the Crackling Energy pulses. We're also using 1 point into Coursing Currents. We should be critting quite a bit, so this only needs 1 point. Electrocution for the damage reduction. You can go into this, but it's not really needed. And this Veer's Mastery, for the key passive, we're using Veer Mastery, which got a buff in 1.1.1 and is very nice now, especially with the Mage Lord's aspect. And that's for the enchantments, we're using Firebolt, and for the burning, and we're using the Lightning Spear enchant for from the Crackling Energy that we get. We can get a lot of Crackling Energy and get a lot of Lightning Spears out at once. We should always at least have 2 when we're in a fight. So yeah. So that's the skills, and onto the Paragon tree. Now onto the Paragon board. So on the starting board, we come up here, go up this way, grab the glyph spot, and go to Enchanter, which adds non-physical damage and improves these two. These 5 points are optional. You can grab them later if you want to, but we go up this way, go out into the Enchantment Master board, and we go, and which way you go here depends on which glyph that you're using. Go up here, grab this one, and we're using Territorial here. You can also use Elementalist, Imbiber, Unleash, or Conjure here if you need to. And it depends on whatever you feel like playing. But you go out here and go to this board, which is the Frigid Fate board. Go down here, then go up, grab the reinforced board glyph, or tactician if you're leveling. Tactician, if you're using tactician, you switch these two nodes, but in general you keep it the same, and you can actually delete these two, but you switch those two. And you come up here, grab this and these nodes around it. You grab all this vulnerable damage, all these vulnerable damage. You come down here to the static surge board. Come this way. Leveling up, you can go this way, but for later on, you want to go this way. Go around, grab the glyph. You're putting in control. You're grabbing this. You can, leveling up, you can grab this for more stun damage. Coming down this way, grabbing potion healing and max life, which you need for later on. And you're going to the Burning Instinct board. You come up this way, and you're grabbing this. And you can grab these two if you have the points, or you grab these 3 points if you have the points, but I don't. And then you come up to the glyph where you're putting in exploit. You can put destruction, which is up here, but you can put destruction here as well while you're leveling. And then you come up, fill out this board, you go up, and this is the Ceaseless Conduit board. You come up this way, grab this crackling energy, lightning damage, and you grab this node, but you're really just grabbing it for the lightning damage. You come back this way, you grab this glyph node, you fill out all the decks in this area for the Ceaseless, for the destruction glyph, and that's it. That's the Paragon. Other places you can go here for damage to burning. You can go here for damage to burning, but I don't need it. You can go for damage to elite. You can go this way. You can come up here while leveling. You can come up this way and grab all this non-physical damage. You can boost your non-physical damage up to like 500% close to it. Doing this while leveling, but inclusion that and you can also grab this for more defense. You can not grab this if you want more offense. But that's the Paragon tree, and now we're going to go into conclusions. Now for some conclusions. I came upon this exact build a couple days ago, and I am absolutely loving it. It's a lot of fun. I've had a lot of blast playing it. It's a very straightforward build. You're basically going straight forward, and you're just running through enemies. For stats, which I forgot to do earlier, 40% crit, 42% crit, 200. If you add these two together, 60% critical damage, 200% vulnerable damage, 130. This is just from the glyph, from the control glyph. 130% crowd control damage, 300% damage with lightning. This can go up with the Paragon on the second board. This can go up to like 500% if you want it. So these two basically will keep you alive. Damage from close and damage from burning, and that's why I have the Firebolt enchant. I don't have any extra mana in this build, but it doesn't really need it. The move speed, because if you're not chain lightning, you're arc lashing. So the move speed 136.8, but it can go up to 200. It can basically hit the cap if you kill an elite. So yeah, so that's the stats rundown. I have a lot of blast with this build. It's a lot of fun. You're basically it numbers everywhere. The if there's any improvements, I would change the helm. I need a new helm. I would love to get like cooldown reduction on the neck, on the amulet, but that's it. I would absolutely go higher in keys if I get those. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Hope you enjoyed and have a nice day.
Yeah.